That the world has been lost is something that we're not speaking of in a religious sense. World Literature 1 is to reconstruct the natural world as it was seen through the eyes of those who lived before us. That the world has been lost is something we speak of now in a biological and botanical sense. And we may also speak of it in a social sense, but I'm trying to confine my remarks to the natural envelope within which we live. So ancient literature just assumes that you know this because they knew it. And so we've got to kind of backtrack and reconstruct what it was that they saw, because we don't see it anymore. As I said before, we're indoor people. You left your room to come to the class, and when you leave the class, you get in your car and go back to your home or your room. Don't go outside anymore. But it used to be that people never went inside. When the Greeks were sailing on their ships in the Iliad and in the Odyssey, and when they were fighting, where were they fighting? They were camped on the beach. They had tents to shelter from the elements, but the great part of the daylight and even the nighttime hours were spent outside around campfires, hunting, fishing, fighting, etc. Now, I don't want to imply to you that ancient literature addresses ecological questions. My point is that it merely assumes ecological experience that we don't have. Ancient literature, rather, and here is what you want to know, ancient literature is very much concerned with human questions. Love, war, and worship of God. Those are the three main ancient themes. I'm sorry to put it this way, but they did. The love of woman, the agony of war, the worship of God. Those three. And it's only when you get to Wordsworth that you get somebody writing what's called nature poetry. We're taking them in reverse order this morning. I would like us all to begin now to pull out the Bibles you brought. Let's take a look at the sense in which the worship of God is communicated in some of the Psalms. Psalm 2, Psalm 8, 16, 22, 23, 24, 40, 41, 45, 68, 69, 72, 89, 102, 110, 118 are the Messianic Psalms. Will you say, who said so? I didn't. And that's one of the things you have to realize. This is not a class of what you call original teaching. I mean, I'm not inventing these ideas, am I? Where did I get them from? Let's call them all, lump them all together and call them the critics or the educators. And yeah, I got it out of a book. As a matter of fact, I got it out of the Schofield Bible. I don't know how they decided that these were the ones and the only ones. Myself, I want to quarrel with them. Don't you want to think for yourself? This, though, gives us a point of departure from which then we can begin to expand our own thoughts about such and other like questions. There's a beginning for us, and I've also got here what you're looking for in each of the Psalms. Maybe I can write it up on the board, but I don't want to right yet. I want to ask, though, first, those here last time, I said there were two kinds of Messianic Psalms that express two different kinds of ideas. What are those two ideas?
Jesus, the agony of Jesus.
The agony of Jesus on the cross, and before and after. And when Jesus comes in judgment to rule the earth. How would somebody who writes 800 to 1,000 years before Christ was born, how would that person be able to talk about what Christ felt and thought when he was on the cross? Secondly, and this is even a more remote point, how would somebody who lived 1,000 years before Christ was born know what Christ was going to think when he came back to judge the earth with the rod of iron, which hasn't happened yet? That's why they're called prophetic. Big word, prophetic. So when we speak of these Psalms, we call them the prophetic or Messianic Psalms because they prophesy or predict what would be in the mind of Christ at much later times. I also said to the class last time that this is not a characteristic that is confined only to biblical literature. All great poets predict the future unknowingly. All great poets predict the future unknowingly. We will spend a little time in perhaps documenting that kind of an assertion. But for right now, I want us to begin, and let's take a look at Psalm 2. Because when you've got the text, why talk about anything else? Don't generalize, be specific. Psalm 2. What part of this is the prophetic part? Schofield says, especially verses 7 to 9. Let's read them. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. That sounds familiar.
Excuse me, are you reading the second Psalm?
Yeah. King James Version. I will declare the decree. The Lord hath said unto me, Thou art my son, this day have I begotten thee. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Thou shalt dash them in pieces like a potter's vessel. Have you heard that before? Where? It's in first Handel's Messiah. Thou shalt break them in pieces. Sure, yeah. Well, if you listen to it, you can hear it. And likewise, it probably sounds familiar to you. Well, you haven't heard it if you haven't listened to it. Now, there's one thing when you have ears, but you can't hear, right? But that's not that case. This one here about, ask of me and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance. Did the Jews want the heathen in any case? Ever? No, they didn't, no. So who might this be referring to? If you're reading this at, in the Old Testament times, what are you going to make out of this? Ask of me and I shall give thee the heathen. Who's thee? Who's that referred to? The who? Thee. I'll give it to thee. I'll give it to thee. I will give the cup to you. Who is you? All right, well, this thee, see, just means you. Ask of me and I shall give you the heathen for thine inheritance. Who are the heathen given to? Well, good, that's right. You'd have to say David. Yeah, David didn't want the heathen either. The only heathen that David wanted was who?
Bathsheba.
Yeah, heathen women. How many did he have? Yeah, I had a bunch of them. You shouldn't necessarily think you should emulate every religious man. Maybe you should, maybe you shouldn't. Obviously, this means, let's interpret it now, from the Christian point of view, who is thee?
Well, God.
Not God.
Thee is you, it's me.
Well, from the Christian point of view, who is it?
Some of the Israelites. There.
Well, we just jump into this, and we try to make sense of it as we go. But my question is a simple one, or at least I intend it to be. When it says, ask of me, who's me?
God.
God, fine. Ask of me, and I shall give thee. Who's thee?
Whoever's asking.
Who's asking?
David.
David. Who's David speaking for?
The Israelites, the nation of Israel.
The Jews.
Messiah. Messiah. Who's Messiah? From the Christian point of view. Christ. Okay? So that what the theologians then say about this is that David is giving a preview of what Christ's mission is. Ask of me, and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and the uttermost parts of the earth for thy possession. So, obviously, which of the two kinds of Messianic psalm is this one? The one that speaks of his suffering and agony on the cross, or the one that speaks of his coming in judgment and possession of the earth?
Exaltation.
Second one, exaltation. Fine. There's a lot of ways to put these. Maybe I've oversimplified in saying there are only two. Thou shalt break them with a rod of iron. Well, that doesn't sound like fun. Who here wants to be broken? No? How will you get wisdom if you're not broken? No, discipline won't give you wisdom.
No, I'm just saying you have to have.
We want wisdom, but we don't want wisdom.
Well, we can't have it then. I think you should maybe read some of the biographies and autobiographies of the great saints, whoever they might be. And you always find out that they ask God to break them.
Another way would be total submission.
Yes, most of us have difficulty doing that because we don't really know what it is until we've been broken. The sacrifices of God are a broken and a contrite heart. And then verse 12 follows up on this same theme, the exaltation of Christ, Psalm 2, when it says, Kiss the Son, lest he be angry, and ye perish from the way, when his wrath is kindled but a little. Blessed are all they that put their trust in him. And the idea, this kiss the Son, lest he be angry, is the token of worship, the token of submission that is required when the kingdom age is brought to the earth. Who wants peace? Nobody. I don't know. I'm just asking,
Everybody wants peace.
Everybody.
Quickly respond. Everybody. Oh, you want peace, okay? When will peace be on the earth?
When it's complete.
It's called the kingdom age. When Christ comes to do what? To be the what? The king. We're not going to have democracy, huh? No.
There'll be a form of democracy, but yes, for a dictatorship.
Well, I don't know if we should equivocate like that. You can say what you will about it. There's plenty of room. I suppose everything has been said about the coming kingdom age that can be said by the various interpreters. Personally, I'd just rather read it myself and make up my own mind, even though it might be a little naive. It's all right. Does God mind if I'm not read up on the theologians? He doesn't care. What does he care about? What does God want?
About your relationship with him.
Yeah, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if I am a Baptist. And he doesn't care if I conform to your ideas? He doesn't care about that. Okay, well, all right. Well, we said that. And we see here that Psalm 2, in these areas, 7 to 9, and then verse 12, for those of you who haven't got it, concern the exaltation, the divine government brought to the earth. Let's press on, because we've got a bunch of these to cover. And I'm going to dwell upon Psalm 8 with you this morning. Okay, so we'll be here for time. If you've got the book, why don't you open it up? It's in the book. In the book. That book, right there.
Page 95.
Page 95. Good. Thanks. How'd you know that?
Well, I looked it up.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, page 95 in the book. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth. We're going awfully fast. What time is it? 8:50. We'll end on this one, I think. In order to communicate this incredibly complex 4,000-year period, I just can't say it, I mean, I have to partly dramatize it. I have to partly circle around it and repeat it in different ways. So I'm going to continue to do this kind of circular stuff. Don't trouble at it. Just wait for the next one to come around. There's always going to be another one. Here comes now a repetition of two ideas that we've talked about. First, what is the true human being? Secondly, what is the human relationship to the cosmos? That's the question. In order for us to find out what Psalm 8 is going to tell us about true human nature and the relationship of the true human to the cosmos, we have to understand what a metaphor is. It's done metaphorically. It just doesn't come out and say, how do you do? My name is the true human being. It doesn't do that. Why do you say it doesn't? If the Bible wants to teach us, why doesn't it just come out and smack us one? Why does it make us have to hunt and peck? Why is wisdom hidden?
Why? Because you are supposed to search for it.
Yeah. Seek ye shall find. Well, this one's hidden in a metaphor. The answer to those two questions is hidden in a metaphor. Let us ask ourselves what the metaphor is. And I had an assignment for the class also beyond looking at Orion, and I asked them to tell me what part of the human anatomy is discussed and used, that is, say, is the vehicle for the expression of these ideas in Psalm 8. And what's the answer? What part of the human anatomy? Fingers? Right, let me get them up here. Fingers, what else? Hands? Feet. Okay. Another thing that I talked about last time was the presence of a certain device in biblical poetry that is not rhyme, and therefore something we'll have to learn and experience before we can identify it, and that's called what? The main poetic device in biblical poetry is parallelism. Definition, parallelism, merely means the repetition of an idea a second time in slightly different words. The heavens declare the glory of God. The firmament, the earth, shows his handiwork. The subject that both of those statements have in common is the glory of God. The heavens declare, the earth shows. This is a parallelism. Throughout the Psalms, throughout all biblical writing, you'll see a great deal of parallelism. Now, we'll keep an eye out for it as we go along. But probably you'd want to say that parallelism exists between fingers and hands. First question is, what is a true human being? Second question is, what is its relationship to the universe? But we're looking at these through the glasses of the Messianic Psalms. So before we get into that, let me ask you, what is the Messianic input here? Why is this called a Messianic Psalm? We did it with Psalm 2. Which of the two kinds would this one be? First or second? It has to be the second. Yeah, it's not too hard to find that out. Why it is exactly we'll now look at. If in Psalm 2 we had a thee, ask of me and I shall give thee the heathen for thine inheritance, and we said that was who? Messiah. Fine. Messiah. Christ. Then, and if Psalm 8 is a Messianic Psalm also, then who is it speaking of?
Speaking of Jesus.
Not Jesus, Christ. Let's say Christ, the Messiah. Right. Yeah. I don't want to confuse our terms here. Right. So this is about Christ too. Who's the best example of the true human being? Christ. Are we sure? Is Christ a human being? Was he a human being? Yes. Yes. Christ was the Son of God?
Yes.
A true human being must be the Son of God?
Yes. Well, we're all sons of
Well,
God.
easy. I just want to, when you get into the cavernous reaches of 302 way back in the shadows there, you're not necessarily sure that you're getting through. Is it true that Christ is the best example of the human being?
Yes.
Is it true that Christ is the Son of God?
Yes.
Is it true, therefore, that a true human being must be the Son of God?
Yes.
Okay, well then, this describes Christ according to the critics. This is about Christ. But because Christ is the best example of a human being, it's also about who? Us, you and I, men and women. O Lord, how excellent is thy name in all the earth, who has set thy glory above the what?
Heaven.
Where's God? Where? Where's God? In heaven?
Above the heaven.
Above the heavens. Now, what does it mean? Now, the Bible has this sense of space that is maybe not a modern sense of space. That's okay. They didn't have telescopes, did they? Where is above the heavens? Where is that?
Where no man has been.
Where no man has been. Well, but you haven't been to Betelgeuse either, have you? You haven't been to Sirius either.
But in terms of, when we think in terms of man, at the present time, man in somewhere, in some time period, has been able to touch everything that is involved in terms of the cosmos.
I see where you're going. Let's try to put it another way, a little easier way, and put it this way: that above the heavens is where?
In infinity.
In or out of space?
Out of space.
Out of space. Where's that? Out of space and out of time. Where's that? We don't know. Why don't we know? I thought we knew everything. We don't know everything. Okay. And so the first thing the psalm does, this psalm is a cosmology, you see. And the first thing the psalm does is to locate the proper province of God. It's a cosmology. A cosmology means a kind of map of the cosmos or the universe. Cosmology is the stars, and it's a very important question in ancient literature and all of them. So here's God. He's above the heavens. And I don't know what the heavens are supposed to be drawn like. But probably it looks something like this to their minds. To our minds, it's in terms of meta-galaxies and super-galaxies. But we don't want to talk about that either yet. We will later. Okay, so you have three terms right away. First, you've got the place where God is. Secondly, you've got the place where man is. And thirdly, you've got the place where who is in the psalm. Who? There's a third being, a fourth being too. Angels. Oh, well, where are angels? Middle, fine. And there's another kind of being too. At the back, at the bottom.
Yeah.
Beings. Animals. Animals are where? Under where?
Man.
Read the psalm. In the language of the psalm, animals are where? Where? Animals. Under his feet. Very good. And you see, she's interpreting that, but that's right. The fowl of the air and the fish of the sea, and whatsoever passes in the paths of the sea. Okay, they're under his feet. That's saying man has dominion over them. He rules them. If I bring a lion to class, you'll rule the lion for me, won't you? Oh, well, you mean to say I can't bring my lion to class? How about if I just bring a little bobcat? Yeah, I know, it's cool. I'll give him to you. He'll curl up in your lap and disavow you. Well, no, that's not nice. I just want you to be careful. Because listen to me, are you and I examples of true human beings? Be careful. If so, I can bring the lion and let him lie down with the lamb.
That's right.
Are you and I examples of true human beings right now?
Right now, no.
All right. Okay, so you don't want me to bring the lion to class. All right. Okay, I won't.
Definitely cage.
Okay. We don't cage our lions where I come from. Okay. So there's a sense in which the psalm is true and descriptive of something, and that there's another sense in which that truth is not operative at the present time. We have to do it.
But it was true at one time.
Well, let me finish my presentation, and you'll see what I'm going to come to.
Okay.
Presumably it was for Adam, right?
Right.
Adam in the garden. But then Adam got what? He got expelled, right? And he can't go back.
He became as low as the animal.
Well, not really. But let's look here again. All right, so we have a cosmology, and in our cosmology we have the four leading characters in the universe: God, angels, man, beasts, as it concerns the earth. But it begins by locating God, first of all, at the top. So we're going down. Is it so? Fine. Verse 3, when I consider whose heavens, whose are they? Thy. Who's thy? God. What did God do?
He created.
Okay, God created the heavens with what?
With his fingers.
Fine. Are you listening? When I consider thy heavens, the work of thy fingers. Have you seen Michelangelo's paintings on the Sistine Chapel ceiling? You got to go back this. But here's God, his fingers reaching out, and then Adam, reach your finger out. Adam is there, and they're almost touching. So it's very classic. See, that's supposed to be the infusion of the divine spark, I guess. In the same sense of the fingers, God created the heavens with his fingers. How did he do that? Not hard, is it? Not hard. When I consider thy heavens, the work, it's singular there, of thy fingers. And then, what's in the heavens? What are the heavens composed of?
Moon and stars.
Okay, so, see, there's always a sense in which the good poem will specify the general. The general is the heavens, the moon, and the stars. What about the sun? Why did they leave out the sun? We're saving the sun, right, for another time, aren't we? Psalm 19 takes up the sun. Well, we'll just wait now. Ordained is a big word there. Ordained. Who's been ordained in here? Okay, we got some ordained people. How does this part of the anatomy figure in ordination?
Laying on the hands.
Laying on the hands. That's your ordination. Okay. So God ordained the heavens by doing what? Laying his hands on them. Well, in this case, what part of the hands?
Fingers.
Don't move. He's ordained. You can do that with the universe. That's a big deal. The universe is a very big place. I will try to communicate to you how big it is later on. But for right now, we're sort of setting the groundwork in terms of classicism. We're just using the Psalms to identify it. What is man that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man that thou... Who's the Son of Man? Christ, Son of Man. Luke, Son of Man. Or is it Mark?
Matthew 2.
Okay. What is man that thou art mindful of him? And the Son of Man that thou visitest him. Has God visited you? Problem, isn't it? Perhaps.
He has visited everybody, but not everybody received.
But thou hast made him a little lower than the angels. Now, here we go. Where are the angels in God's system? Apparently they're between man and God. The only problem is, and this is what we talked about last time in terms of the language Hebrew, the word is not angels. Here, it's mistranslated, isn't it? The word for angels, the word that the King James boys translate angels is really the word for what? Has anyone got another translation that gives it? It's too bad this is not angels. I hope this doesn't sort of disturb the cosmology I'm trying to set up. The word's Elohim. What's that word mean? It's plural. It's plural for God. So it means gods. So man is made a little lower than the God. If I can see everybody here, I just feel like I grew a couple sizes there, right? Well, don't puff up. It's too easy to, poke you, blow your bubble. But I was made him a little lower than the angels, and has crowned him with glory and honor. Now, what? Who's got their crown on? I'm just looking. I just don't see them. Would you leave them at home? When you write your papers, students say, well, I left it in my room. I left it in my friend's house. It's in my car. I'll bring it to you next time. Where's your crown? Where are the crowns of your glory and honor? Where? Well, I think it'd be better for you to say, I don't know. That would be honest anyway. But who is crowned with glory and honor?
Man.
Specifically who? The Messiah. The Christians say that's Christ. The Jews say that's who? Somebody else maybe. The final interpretation of it is that's all of us if we are meant by that in our true sense, in terms of the true human nature. The true human being is crowned with what? Glory and honor. Glory and honor. Is this just men and women? It speaks of men here. And one, if one were to preach it, I guess I don't do this, but I'm tempted to make little snide remarks about men, how many men do you see wearing crowns? Glory and honor. Really, what have men got on their heads? Shame and dishonor. Well, that's a problem. What is man that thou art mindful of him, and the Son of Man that thou visitest him? For thou madest him a little lower than the angels, and hast crowned him with glory and honor. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. And here comes, I think you've seen partly, can you identify the nature of the true human being? Created a little lower than the gods, crowned with glory and honor, and now here comes the third point. Now you want to get these things down, because once I've taught it, I feel like it's permanent, and you ought to know it. Now here's where the nature of the true human being and his relationship to the universe, they come together, and they're really the same thing here in this third point. And this point is elaborated for us through the metaphor of the hands and fingers. Earlier we saw that when I consider thy heavens the work of thy fingers, that God created the universe, its totality, the meta, para, super galaxies, which incidentally are asymmetrical, not symmetrical. Only man is symmetrical. However, now here we see that thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. We said earlier, speaking of the feet, that man has dominion over the animals, so? But when I said, can I bring my lion to class? They said no. So apparently, man has neither dominion over what's under his feet any more than he has over the works of God's hands. Both of those are true. What happened to us anyway? What happened to us? Don't you think about this?
We have strayed from the original.
Well, you ought to hang your heads, right? There ought to be weeping here. There isn't any weeping. I guess we don't really care. We've got used to it. That's what Blake says, Man fell, and he gradually became so used to the place where he'd fallen to that he didn't want to leave. Just like when you try to let somebody in prison, how do they feel?
Demeanored.
Go on. Go on. Go. Here's some money. Go on. They don't want to live. Prison's their home. When your prison becomes your home, you don't want to leave it. You can get used to almost anything, can't you? So we're comfortable. Are we comfortable? We are. True, there are no lights on in the room, and it may be a little chilly, but, we're comfortable. We're okay. We're doing okay, aren't we? Aren't we? Well, I guess we are. We're all going to get jobs, aren't we? Go to work. Buy our own house. Have how many cars? 2 cars. And probably many of us will have 2 foreign cars as well. Yeah. We can drive at high speed down North Central Expressway, with all the other people, as long as they don't run into us, which would be their fault. I'm a defensive driver. Thou madest him to have dominion over the works of thy hands. I want to know what it means, even if it doesn't apply to me. It says, now here's the metaphor it's going to teach us. Metaphor is when you have a kind of a likeness or picture of a thing. The picture is in terms of the hands. The truth is not stated, it is only presented metaphorically, and so it's not going to come out and say, this is the truth, but it pictures it for us. And this is what literature or literary interpretation can do for you. You may interpret metaphors and images and find truths within them. All right, so there's a little picture here, but the picture represents something very profound. Let's ask what that is. Okay. God created the heavens with his what? And he gave to man what? Dominion over what? Over the works of his hands. Now let's think about this. God created heavens with his fingers, and he gave to man dominion over the works of his hands. What's that mean? What's the true place of man in the universe? The true man. The real man.
Have dominion over all.
Wait. He says have dominion over all things. Use the language of the psalm. Have dominion over what?
Over the works of God's hands.
Over the works of God's hands. So the question is what? What are the works of God's hands? So tell me. Don't say everything. I don't know what that is. What did God make with his hands?
He made the stars.
The heavens, the moon, and the stars.
He made the animals.
Okay. Excellent. So what's the true place of man in the universe? In terms of the biblical cosmology, question. In terms of the biblical cosmology, what is the true place of man in the universe? Come and point to it. Just show me where. There's four stations. There's God, angel, Elohim, man, and animals. What's the true place of man in the universe?
He should be second to God then.
Here, right here, right? Okay? Sounds like man has sort of got a prison. What's the name of his prison? Good. Yeah. And if the true man, though, can go where? To where? The stars. The moon. The stars and the planets. There's a lot more stars, many more stars than planets, as far as we know. So the true place of man in the universe is where? All creation. Think about that. That's big. Who's ready to go? Come on. Who's going? You want to go? All right. Who wants to go? You want to go. Who else wants to go? Quick. Just 2? Okay.
Well, he said it wasn't going to be very many.
I see what you mean, but look at it this way. Are you waiting for God to invite you?
No.
Why not?
He's already invited.
Very good. Yeah, okay. The statement is already here. The nature of man, is it already fixed or not?
Yes, it's already fixed.
Yeah. So what? What are you waiting for? Confirmation. You got confirmation. What are you waiting for? I don't know. It's like a person who all their life was poor, but then they won the sweepstakes, as people do these days. They're sitting at home with $10 million in the bank. So you say to them, what? What are you waiting for? Why don't you get going? Why don't you use your what? What's the word here? Inherit. Why don't you use your inheritance? Well, okay, I know we're dummies. Okay, maybe we're born dummies. Are we born dummies? Maybe so. Maybe not. Maybe we don't like that. Okay. Maybe we're not born dummies, but maybe we are born dummies. So what do we grow up into being? No. You're missing it. So we grow up into being what? No. The opposite. Space travelers.
Right.
Is that it? Space and time. What's the universe made out of? Space and time. Read Einstein. Maybe we'll get to it. I doubt it, though. That's next semester.
I got 9:13.
All right. Still in business. Okay. The true place of man is to travel and have dominion over the works of God's hands. But I haven't clinched it yet. These people are too agreeable, I think, for the rest of you. You ought to say, well, okay, yeah. So what? He says he made the heavens with his fingers, not with his hands. My only point here about the metaphor is, which is a part of which? Are the hands a part of the fingers, or are the fingers a part of the hand? Tell me.
The fingers are part of the hand.
Well, don't be so agreeable. I'm not used to people agreeing with me. It makes me uneasy. But that's my view. So God made heavens with his fingers, and he gave to man all the works of his hands. What should we be doing? We should be doing what? Practicing our dominion over all. That's a big one. That's a real big one. So, okay, let's get going.
That's what we're doing.
What do you mean, we? Here's one thing you could do. Like I went to the hardware store to buy some nails, see. So this guy said, I've been delivering mail for 30 years, and I'm sure glad I'm inside this winter since before the cold front came in the other day. So I said, yeah. I said, but I think this cold front isn't going to be nothing. Well, it turned out to be something. But as I was going out, he said, I've already planted my onion sets. So what's he doing? Practicing. Yeah, he's practicing his dominion. And he that is worthy in a little, so all you got to do is sharpen your pencil. And then do what? Start writing. Or whatever. So, you see here, that the psalm does not come out and say any of these things that I have said, and you can say, well, that's merely an interpretation, and granted that it is. It's an interpretation, though, through the vehicle of the metaphor and the image of human anatomy in the Psalms, and it's just merely a question of connecting fingers and hands, see, and then you get all of this comes forth. But from the Messianic point of view, we see this as it connects to Christ. It is Christ who did what? Created. Not the earth.
No. The heavens.
Everything. It's Christ. Did you know that? Did you think God the Father did it?
Yes.
He didn't.
Yes.
God the Son did.
Of course, 1 John tells you, in the beginning was the Word was God.
Let him learn for himself. Check out Colossians 2, by the way.
Right.
And who made the atom? I mean atom. And what holds it together? I thought that the nucleus of the atom had a positive and a negative charge. Is it so?
Yeah.
Well, how come it holds together? Why doesn't it go boom? Must be some kind of atomic glue, right? Who's the atomic glue?
God is
Not God.
Christ.
It's Christ. Don't be saying the word G-O-D all the time.
Why not?
Yeah, but he's got
It's a generalization.
with the capital G.
You're talking about something you know nothing about.
Well, I'm talking about something I've been taught using my Bible all my life.
Granted. I'd still say you're talking about something you know nothing about. Now, if you wash the dishes, you know something about that. You got your hands on it. You don't have your hands on it. I'm only trying to provoke you a little bit, although I'm not lying to you. I'm giving you my actual views.
Oh, I must have been my calling God. But this is also true about Jesus. We don't have our hands on, the Christ that you're talking about. We don't have our hands on him.
No, we got our what on? Yeah, and our minds and our hearts.